The silence of deep space was not empty, it was heavy. It pressed against the thick reinforced glass of the observation deck on the USS Aegis. Stationed on the dark edge of the solar system, near the cold orbit of Neptune, the station was a lonely needle in an infinite haystack. It was humanity's furthest outreach, a silent watcher in the dark. Inside the observation deck, the air was cool and recycled, smelling faintly of ozone and stale coffee. Lieutenant Commander Mark stood with his hands clasped behind his back. He was a man of medium build with graying hair and a face that rarely showed emotion. He had spent 20 years looking at the stars, waiting for something that logic said should not exist yet. Beside him sat David, a younger officer with sharp eyes that darted between 3 different screens. David was the sensor operator, and he was very good at his job, even though the job was usually incredibly boring. "Anything interesting?" David Mark asked, his voice low and calm. He did not turn around. He kept looking at the deep blue glow of Neptune in the distance. "Nothing, sir," David replied, tapping a few keys on his console. "Just dust. Ice. The usual background radiation. It's quiet out there. Too quiet, if you ask me." Mark nodded slightly. "Quiet is good. Quiet means we are alone. Alone is safe." But the safety of the silence was about to break. It started as a soft hum, a vibration that rattled the coffee cup on David's desk. At first, David thought it was just the station's life support systems adjusting. He reached for his cup to stop the rattling, but then the alarms began to scream. They were not loud, clanging bells, but a rhythmic, urgent pulse of red light that washed over the room. "Sir," David said, his voice tightening. "I have a gravity spike. It is massive." Mark turned around slowly. He walked to the main console and looked over David's shoulder. "Is it a comet, an asteroid?" "No, sir. It came out of nowhere," David said, his fingers flying across the keyboard. "The gravity reading it is off the charts. It is not natural. Something is tearing the fabric of space near the moon Triton." On the main screen, the space near Neptune began to twist. It looked like heat rising from a road on a hot summer day, but in the freezing vacuum of space. The stars behind the distortion bent and warped. Then, with a flash of blinding violet light, the reality of the universe split open. From that tearing wound in the sky, a shape emerged. It was colossal. It was a jagged, spear-headed beast of dark metal that dwarfed anything human engineers had ever dreamed of building. The ship was easily the size of a small city. Its hull was scarred, pitted by the burns of ancient battles, and it was colored the shade of dried blood. As it slid fully into the solar system, the space around it seemed to groan under its weight. Mark stared at the screen. He did not panic. His heart rate did not spike. Instead, he felt a strange sense of calm settle over him. The what if that had haunted humanity for centuries had finally arrived. It was here. "Report," Mark said, his voice cutting through the sirens. "It is a warship, sir," David whispered, his face pale. "Sensors are picking up high energy readings. Weapons ports are opening along the hull. It is charging something." The alien ship hung in the void, dark and menacing against the faint light of the distant sun. It did not move immediately. It seemed to be waiting, watching. Then, a signal blasted through the electromagnetic spectrum. It was powerful enough to overload the speakers on the Aegis for a moment before the computer filtered it into a translation. A voice boomed through the bridge. It was not a human voice. It sounded like grinding stones and thunder, layered with a digital hiss. "Primitive creatures of soul," the voice announced. "I am Commander Vex of the Xylos hegemony. Your world has been evaluated. You are weak. You are divided. Your planet and its resources are now claimed by the hegemony. Lower your shields and prepare for subjugation. Resistance is not only futile, it is an insult to your masters. Do not force us to burn your world to ash before we enslave you." The message ended. The silence returned, but it was now filled with the hum of the alien ship's engines. David looked up at Mark, his eyes wide with terror. "Sir, what do we do? They are threatening to destroy Earth. Should we send a message? Should we beg for mercy?" Mark looked at the massive ship on the screen. The aliens expected fear. They expected a chaotic, scared response from a species that had just discovered faster than light travel. They expected humanity to kneel. A small smile touched the corner of Mark's mouth. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a hunter who had finally lured the bear into the trap. "Beg?" Mark asked softly. "David, look at the position of that ship." David looked down at the tactical map. "They are just past Neptune, sir. They are approaching the inner system." "Exactly," Mark said. He turned to the communication station. "Open a secure channel to Earth Command. Priority Alpha." The comms officer, a woman named Lisa who had been silently listening, looked up. "Channel open, sir." Mark leaned into the microphone. He spoke clearly and slowly. "This is Observation Outpost Aegis. The target has entered the box. I repeat, the asset is confirmed. They are broadcasting threats of subjugation. They have no idea what is waiting for them." On the screen, the alien ship began to move forward. It accelerated slowly, like a predator stalking its prey. It assumed the tiny human station was no threat. "Earth Command acknowledges," Lisa said after a moment. She sounded excited. "Sir, Command confirms. The trap is active. All fleets are holding breath. They are waiting for your order." Mark looked at David. The younger man was shaking, but he was also listening. He realized that the fear was one-sided. "David, lock all sensors onto that ship," Mark ordered. "I want to know every time they flush a toilet on that vessel. But do not fire. Do not engage. Let them think they are scary." "Yes, sir," David said, his voice steadying. On the bridge of the alien ship, thousands of light years away from home, the crew laughed. They saw the tiny human station on their monitors. To them, the Aegis was like an ant facing a boot. They prepared their main cannons, eager to test their weapons on the primitive outpost. They wanted to see the humans scatter. But Mark did not scatter. He stood straight, fixing his uniform. "Relay the status of the fleet," Mark said to the room. "Fleet 1 is mobile in the asteroid belt," Lisa reported. "Fleet 2 is holding position near Mars. The orbital platforms are powered up and waiting. We have them surrounded, sir. They just walked into a hornet's nest." "Good," Mark said. "Let them come." The alien ship fired a test shot. A beam of green energy lashed out from the destroyer, missing the Aegis intentionally. It was a warning shot, meant to terrify. The beam flew past the station and vaporized a nearby moonlet, turning rock into dust in a second. The bridge crew flinched. David gasped. Mark didn't blink. "They are trying to intimidate us. It is a classic psychological tactic. They want us to freeze." He walked back to the window. The alien ship was getting closer. It was a magnificent piece of engineering, terrifying and beautiful. But it had one fatal flaw. It was arrogant. It assumed that because humans lived on one planet, they were weak. They didn't know that humanity had spent the last 50 years preparing for exactly this moment. They didn't know that while humans looked peaceful, they had been building the largest war machine in galactic history in secret. "Send the final code," Mark said. Lisa typed the command. Code sent. Condition red is a go. Across the solar system, things began to wake up. Hidden deep within the rings of Saturn, massive shapes began to move. Buried under the surface of the moon, great doors slid open. In the asteroid belt, rocks that looked like asteroids unfolded to reveal deadly missile silos. The alien ship, the Xylos dreadnought, continued its slow march toward Earth. Its commander sat on his throne, confident that the war was already won. He thought he was hunting a sheep. Mark watched the screen. He thought about his family back in Colorado. He thought about the history of the human race. Humans fought. Humans survived. Humans invented better ways to fight when pushed against the wall. They have no idea, Mark whispered to himself. The alien ship transmitted another message. You have 5 minutes to swear loyalty to the hegemony, or we begin orbital bombardment of your planet. Mark turned to David. Time to impact. At their current speed 2 hours, David answered. 2 hours, Mark repeated. Plenty of time, sir, shouldn't we warn them? David asked, looking at the terrifying alien ship. Maybe we can negotiate. Mark looked at the young officer. David, look at the size of that ship. Do you think they want to talk? They want slaves. They want our water. They want our minerals. There is no negotiation with a predator. You don't negotiate with a shark. You kill it. David swallowed hard and nodded. He understood now. The fear was leaving him, replaced by a cold determination. He looked at his controls. He had the power to guide the wolves to the prey. Evasive maneuvers, Mr. David, Mark ordered. Let's make it look like we are running scared. Lead them into the belt. Aye, sir, David said. He grabbed the controls. The Aegis banked hard, turning away from the alien ship and firing its thrusters to full power. On the alien scanners, the human ship fled in panic. The alien commander laughed. The chase was on. They accelerated, following the Aegis toward the inner solar system. They were heading straight for the asteroid belt, and straight into the waiting guns of the United Earth Fleet. Mark watched the tactical map. The red dot of the alien ship was moving right into the green zone of the ambush. Steady, Mark said to the room. Wait for the signal. The void of space was silent, but soon, very soon, it would be filled with the roar of human engines and the fire of human guns. The warship had emerged from the dark, but it would find that the darkness of space was nothing compared to the overwhelming force of humanity. The alien ship moved through the darkness like a shark in deep water. It followed the retreating human station, the USS Aegis, with a slow, terrifying confidence. To the aliens inside the massive Xylos dreadnought, this was not a war. It was a simple cleanup job. They had done this 1,000 times across 1,000 stars. They would arrive, the primitives would scream, and then the primitives would kneel. Commander Vex sat on his command chair, which looked like a throne made of black bone. He watched the main screen. The tiny human ship was fleeing, its engines glowing blue as it ran away. Vex let out a sound that was like a low growl and a laugh mixed together. They run, Vex said to his crew. Just as the simulations predicted. Their fear is palpable. I can smell it from here. Their speed is minimal, Commander, his navigation officer reported. They are heading toward the asteroid belt. They are trying to hide in the rocks. Let them hide, Vex replied, leaning back. There is no hiding from us. We will crush their station and then turn their planet into glass. Prepare the main cannons. I want to destroy that fleeing ship the moment they leave the asteroids. The Xylos ship was huge. As it passed the orbit of Uranus, its shadow stretched out for miles behind it. It was a masterpiece of alien engineering, shielded by energy fields that could withstand nuclear explosions. It carried thousands of fighters and enough firepower to level a continent. In their minds, they were gods. They believed nothing in this young solar system could hurt them. However, the solar system was not as young or as weak as they thought. Deep within the dense field of rocks and ice that made up the asteroid belt, everything was quiet. Large, dark rocks floated silently in the void. But if one looked closely, the rocks were not just rocks. They were camouflaged. Commander Laura stood on the bridge of the USS Liberty. The Liberty was the flagship of the Earth Defense Fleet, a massive battleship that had been built in secret inside a hollowed-out asteroid. It was ugly, bulky, and covered in thick armor plating, but it was armed with the most powerful weapons humanity had ever created. Laura was a woman who had spent her entire life preparing for this hour. She wore a simple uniform, her hair tied back in a tight bun. Her face was hard, showing no signs of worry. She looked at the tactical map. A red dot was moving closer and closer to their position. They are taking the bait, Laura said softly. Mark is doing a good job. Target is entering range in 3 minutes, her weapons officer, a man named Tom, reported. The Xylos ship is decelerating. They think they have cornered the Aegis. Laura nodded. They think we are scattered. They think we are hiding. Let them think that. Order all ships to decloak. Power up the rail guns. I want a full alpha strike on my command. Do not wait for a clear shot. Shoot through the asteroids if you have to. Decloaking, Tom said. Across the asteroid belt, the illusion of nature vanished. One by one, large rocks seemed to shimmer and fade away, revealing the metal hulls of human warships. There were 50 battleships, 200 cruisers, and thousands of automated drone fighters. They had been sitting there for months, silent and cold, waiting for this exact moment. The USS Liberty led the formation. Its massive heavy rail guns, which ran the entire length of the ship, began to spin. The magnetic coils glowed bright blue. On the bridge of the alien ship, the atmosphere was relaxed. The crew was joking about the easy victory. Then, the alarm screamed. Commander! The sensor officer shouted, his voice cracking in panic. I am reading multiple energy signatures appearing in the asteroid belt. It is a fleet. Vex sat up straight. A fleet? Impossible. These primitives do not have the technology for a fleet this size. Show me. The main screen flickered. The dust of the asteroid belt suddenly lit up with engine lights. It was not a handful of ships, it was a wall of steel. The human fleet had formed a semicircle around the path the aliens were taking. They were blocking the way to Earth. What is this? Vex hissed. How did they hide so many ships? Shields up! Vex roared. Fire at will. Destroy them. The alien ship reacted quickly, its purple shields flared to life, and its side turrets began to spew green plasma bolts toward the asteroid belt. But they were too late. Fire, Laura said calmly. The silence of space was broken. It was not a sound that could be heard in a vacuum, but the vibration was felt in the bones of every ship. The human fleet opened fire as one. It was an alpha strike, a tactic where every ship fires at the exact same target at the exact same time. Thousands of rounds shot out. The main weapons were railguns, guns that used magnets to fire solid metal slugs at incredible speeds. These slugs were not explosive, they were simply heavy and fast. They traveled at a fraction of the speed of light. The wall of metal slammed into the alien ship. The impact was catastrophic. The alien shields, which were strong enough to deflect lasers and missiles, were overwhelmed by the sheer physical force of the attack. The shields flickered and died in seconds. Then, the slugs hit the hull. The Xylos ship shook violently. Explosions bloomed across its dark surface like flowers of fire. Debris flew off into space. The ship groaned under the stress, its internal structure buckling. Entire sections of the ship were sheared off, venting atmosphere and frozen bodies into the void. Report. Vex screamed, grabbing the armrests of his chair as the ship listed to the side. Shields are gone. Hull breach on decks 4 through 12. Our main cannon is disabled. The damage control officer yelled. Vex stared at the screen in disbelief. The human ships were not stopping. They were reloading and firing again. The asteroids around them were being pulverized by the crossfire, creating a massive cloud of dust, but the humans kept shooting. They were relentless. Target their engines. Laura ordered on the Liberty. I don't want them to run. Trap them here. Targeting engines, Commander, Tom confirmed. The human ships adjusted their aim. The second volley was even more precise. The railgun shots tore into the rear of the alien dreadnought, where the massive engines glowed. Blue coolant fluid sprayed out into space, crystallizing instantly. The alien ship's engine lights sputtered and died. The great ship was dead in the water, floating helplessly among the rocks. On the bridge of the Liberty, the crew was focused and intense. There was no cheering yet. They knew the ship wasn't destroyed, only disabled. Sir, David's voice came over the comms from the distant Aegis. He was breathless. I see the explosions from here. It's beautiful. You guys tore them apart. Laura smiled grimly. The hard part is over, David. But they aren't dead yet. Keep watching. Inside the alien ship, panic was spreading. The crew had never faced an enemy like this. They were used to opponents who fired a few shots and then tried to talk. Humans did not talk. Humans just threw metal at you until you stopped moving. Launch the fighters. Vex ordered, his face purple with rage. If the big guns are down, we will swarm them. Launch everything. Hundreds of small alien fighters poured out of the bays of the damaged mothership. They looked like angry metal wasps, flying in chaotic patterns. They charged toward the human fleet, firing their smaller guns. Here comes the swarm, Laura said, sounding almost bored. Captain Eric, release the dogs. From the hangars of the human carriers, thousands of human drone fighters launched. These were unmanned, controlled by advanced ACE. They moved faster than the alien fighters, turning in sharp angles that living pilots could not survive. The sky above the asteroids filled with tiny explosions. The human drones used lasers to pick off the alien fighters one by one. It was a slaughter. The aliens were good pilots, but they were fighting machines that had no fear and could react in milliseconds. Commander, Tom said. The alien ship is trying to restart its engines. They are charging an emergency jump drive. Laura's eyes narrowed. Oh no, you don't. She looked at the tactical map. The alien ship was damaged, but it was trying to escape back to the void. It was trying to run home and tell the Empire what happened. That could not be allowed. Admiral John is on the line, the comms officer said. Put him through, Laura said. Commander, the Admiral's voice was crisp and clear. Do not let them leave. The President has given the order. Total elimination. No survivors, no warnings. We are the apex now. Show them. Understood, Admiral, Laura said. She turned to her crew. Switch to nuclear payloads. Target the bridge and the reactor core. Let's end this. The mood on the bridge shifted. This was no longer a battle, it was an execution. The human ships ceased their rapid-fire railgun shots. The massive missile hatches on the Liberty and the other battleships opened. Target locked, Tom said softly. Fire, Laura commanded. Dozens of large missiles streaked away from the human fleet. They left trails of white smoke as they accelerated toward the wounded giant. The alien ship tried to use its point defense guns to shoot them down, but there were too many, and the alien systems were too damaged. The missiles struck home. This time, the explosions were not just bright flashes, they were miniature suns. Nuclear fire consumed the rear and middle sections of the Xylos dreadnought. The shock wave shattered the remaining hull, ripping the ship apart. The internal reactors went critical, adding to the blast. On the bridge of the alien ship, Vex had only a second to realize his mistake. He had thought he was hunting a sheep. He had walked into a den of lions. Then, the bridge vaporized. The massive explosion lit up the asteroid belt, casting long shadows against the rocks. The shock wave hit the human fleet, shaking them gently, but their shields held. Laura watched the silent fireball bloom on the screen. The great threat was gone. The Empire's best ship was now just floating junk. Status report, she asked. Target destroyed, Tom said. No life signs detected. The ship is breaking into 3 pieces. Good, Laura said. She leaned back in her chair, finally allowing herself to take a deep breath. Tell the fleet to secure the perimeter. And get the salvage crews ready. I want that wreckage searched. Every piece of technology is ours now. She looked out at the stars. The void was no longer empty, and humanity was no longer hidden. They had shown their hand, and it was a hand of iron. The aliens had come with a single ship to conquer a world. They had left with nothing but debris. The silence that followed the nuclear explosions was deceptive. In the vacuum of space, there was no sound to mark the death of the great Xylos ship, only the blinding light fading into darkness and the expanding cloud of debris. The alien warship, once a terrifying symbol of power, was now a broken skeleton floating in the asteroid belt. Fires burned on the shattered hull, fed by the ship's internal atmosphere, until the air ran out and the flames died. Inside the remaining sections of the alien vessel, chaos had taken the place of order. The bridge was gone, vaporized by the human missiles. The engine room was a radioactive ruin. But deep within the heavily armored core of the ship, hundreds of alien warriors and support crew were still alive. They were scared, confused, and angry. They had never lost a battle before. To them, defeat was a concept they only applied to other species. Sub-Commander Grull pulled himself out from under a collapsed console. His left arm was broken, and green blood dripped from a cut on his forehead. The emergency lights bathed the corridor in a dim red glow. Alarms were blaring, a low, mournful sound that echoed through the metal hallways. Around him, other crew members were stumbling to their feet, shaking their heads and shouting in their native tongue. "Report!" Grull shouted, though his voice was raspy. "What is the status of the fleet?" A young officer, his shell cracked, crawled over to him. "The fleet is gone, Commander. It was just us. The humans, they ambushed us. They used a coordinated strike. Our shields are down. Communication with the hegemony is offline." Grull pushed the officer away in anger. "Impossible. These are primitives. They are dirt grubbers. How could they destroy a dreadnought?" "They are waiting," the officer whispered, looking toward the thick metal walls. "I can hear their engines. They are surrounding us." Outside the broken hull, the human fleet was moving with the precision of a clock. The ships were not celebrating their victory. They were professionals. They knew that a wounded animal was often the most dangerous. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, Commander Laura watched the tactical display. The red dot that represented the alien ship was blinking, indicating critical damage, but it was still there. "Captain Eric," Laura said, pressing the communication button on her chair, "the enemy is disabled but not dead. They are likely trying to fix their internal comms or restart a backup generator. We cannot give them time to breathe." Captain Eric's voice came back crisp and clear. He was commanding the carrier group situated on the right flank of the formation. "I agree, Commander. My fighters are running low on fuel, but the drone wings are fully charged. Shall I release the second wave?" "Do it," Laura ordered. "But don't just fire at random. I want you to target their escape pods and any external antenna. Cut them off completely. Isolate them." "Acknowledged." Sending in the swarm. From the bays of the human carriers, a new wave of drones launched. These were smaller than the first batch, designed for close-quarters harassment. They zipped away from the human ships, moving like a cloud of angry bees. They reached the broken alien ship and began their work. Inside the alien ship, the situation went from bad to worse. The humans were not trying to blow the ship up again, they were picking it apart piece by piece. Laser blasts cut through the hull, slicing off weapons pods and communication towers. Explosions rocked the ship as the drones found easy targets. Grull and his surviving team made their way to the secondary control room, a smaller bunker located near the center of the ship. They sealed the thick blast doors behind them. The room was filled with survivors, technicians, soldiers, and even high-ranking diplomats who had been on board to witness the easy conquest of Earth. "The humans are outside the hull," one of the soldiers reported, checking a scanner. "They are attaching cutting charges to our airlocks. They are preparing to board." "Board us," Grull laughed humorlessly. "They want to die hand to hand very well. We will show them what a Xylos warrior can do." But before they could prepare their defense, the ship shuddered violently. It wasn't an explosion from outside. It was something much worse. The gravity stabilizers had failed. The artificial gravity on the ship fluctuated, sending everyone crashing into the ceiling and then slamming them back down to the floor. Groans of pain filled the room. Meanwhile, on Earth, the mood was tense but focused. In the deep underground command center beneath the Rocky Mountains, Admiral John stood before a massive wall of screens. He watched the live feed from the asteroid belt. He was an older man with white hair and a chest full of medals, but today he wore a simple jumpsuit. He watched the drone attack and nodded slowly. The drones are doing their job. But it is time to end this properly. We cannot let them sit there and think of a way to retaliate. Activate the Titan protocol. Are you sure, sir? His aide asked. The Titan platforms have never been tested in combat. They are our last line of defense. Admiral John turned to look at the young man. Son, look at the size of that alien ship. Even broken, it is bigger than anything we have. If they have a self-destruct mechanism, they could take out half our fleet. We need to overwhelm them completely. Activate the protocol. The aide swallowed hard and turned to his console. He typed in a complex code. Titan protocol authorized. Confirming launch keys. Across the Earth and the Moon, massive structures began to move. These were the Titan platforms, orbital defense stations disguised as weather satellites or space junk. They were armed with the biggest guns humanity had ever built, spinal-mounted mass drivers that could fire shells the size of cars. In the asteroid belt, Laura received the notification. Titan protocol is active, the computer announced. Laura looked at her strategic map. New icons appeared, representing the platforms back in the inner solar system. They were lining up their shot. Everyone brace for impact, Laura said over the fleet channel. The Titans are firing. This is going to be big. Back on the alien ship, Grull was shouting orders. Get the emergency generators online. We need to get the message to the fleet. We have to warn them that this planet is a trap. Suddenly, the sensors in the secondary control room screamed. It was a warning they had never seen before. A massive energy spike was coming from the inner system. What is that? A technician asked, trembling. It is coming from the planet itself. Focus the scanners. Grull yelled. The main screen flickered and showed a view of Earth. From the blue marble, bright lines of light shot up into space. They were railgun rounds, moving at incredible speeds. They had been fired from the orbital platforms around Earth and the Moon. They were not aiming at the ship's front or back. They were aiming straight down the middle. The shells reached the asteroid belt in seconds. There was no time to evade. The rounds slammed into the broken hull of the Xylos ship with the force of falling meteors. The impact was devastating. The first few punches tore through the already weakened armor and exploded deep inside the ship. The remaining ammunition stores for the alien fighters detonated. The shock wave traveled through the corridors, blowing out blast doors and crushing bulkheads. In the secondary control room, the lights died completely. Emergency sparks showered down on the survivors. The floor beneath them tilted to a dangerous angle. We are losing atmosphere. A soldier screamed, clutching his throat as the air pressure dropped. The hull is breached. Grull grabbed a magnetic suit from the locker and forced it over his broken body. He looked around the room. These were the elite of the hegemony, but now they looked like terrified children. He realized then that he had made a mistake. He had looked at the humans and seen only their lack of technology. He had not seen their intelligence, their preparation, or their sheer brutality. They had not built a wall to keep the universe out, they had built a kill box. Send a buoy, Grull gasped into his comms, hoping the local system still worked. Launch a black box. Tell the Empire, tell them to run. A small technician nodded and ran to a sealed chute. He ejected a small, hardened data pod out of the ship. It shot away from the wreckage, speeding toward deep space. On the bridge of the Liberty, David, who had been listening in from the Aegis, spoke up. Commander, I see something small ejecting from the enemy ship. It looks like a data buoy. Target it, Laura said immediately. We can't, ma'am, Tom said. It's too fast and too small for our railguns. The drones are out of position. Laura watched the dot on the screen as it sped away from the solar system. Part of her wanted to chase it, but she knew the priority was the ship. Let it go. We have the big prize. She looked at the alien ship. It was no longer a threat. The Titan shots had broken its back. The ship was split into 3 large pieces, drifting aimlessly. The internal fires were going out as the vacuum choked them. The weapon that had come to enslave Earth was now just a graveyard. Status of the enemy ship, Laura asked. Life support is failing across all sectors, Tom reported. We are reading no engine activity. No shields. They are dead in the water. Laura stood up. Prepare the boarding parties. I want prisoners. I want their computers. I want to know everything about where they came from. But be careful. Even a dead snake can bite. She looked around the bridge. Her crew was tired, but their eyes were shining. They had done the impossible. They had destroyed a starship from the stars. Admiral John is hailing us, the comms officer said. On screen, Laura said. The face of the admiral appeared. He looked tired but satisfied. Well done, Commander. The threat is neutralized. The people of Earth are sleeping soundly tonight, thanks to you. Thank you, Admiral, Laura said. But the war isn't over. That buoy they sent, it means others will come. The Admiral nodded gravely. I know. But we sent a message today, too. We told the universe that humanity is not prey. We told them that if you come here, you will find only overwhelming force. The screen went black. Laura turned back to the window. The broken alien ship floated in the distance, a twisted monument to the price of arrogance. The battle was over, but for humanity, the real journey was just beginning. They were no longer alone in the dark, and they were ready. The alien ship was no longer a unified vessel. It was a corpse, split into 3 massive sections that drifted silently through the blackness of the asteroid belt. Fires flickered weakly on the shattered hull, starved of oxygen, dying out one by one. The terrifying weapon that had emerged from the void was now just a tangled mess of metal and wire. But the battle was not entirely over. Inside the broken middle section of the ship, the survivors were waking up to a nightmare. The air was thin and cold, the red emergency lights had faded to a dim gloom. Sub-Commander Grull floated in the zero gravity of the corridor, held in place only by the magnetic boots of his damaged suit. His broken arm throbbed with every heartbeat, but the fear in his mind was stronger than the pain. Around him, the few remaining soldiers and crew members were gathering. They looked beaten. Their shiny armor was scratched and dented. Their arrogance had been replaced by a primal instinct to survive. They had come to conquer Earth, but now they were trapped in a floating tomb. We must get to the escape pods, one of the soldiers said, his voice shaking over the radio. The humans are coming. I can hear them cutting through the airlock. Grull grabbed the soldier by the shoulder. No. The humans do not take prisoners. They are killers. If we get in the pods, they will just shoot us down like target practice. We have to fight. But fighting seemed impossible. Suddenly, a loud boom echoed through the hallway. The heavy blast door at the end of the corridor buckled. A shower of sparks rained down as a bright orange plasma torch cut through the center of the metal. The humans were outside, and they were coming in. Outside the ship, the scene was one of organized chaos. Small human shuttles had docked with the alien wreck like pilot fish attaching to a shark. From these shuttles, boarding teams of human marines in heavy black space armor were forcing their way inside. They were not here to talk. They were here to clean house. Commander Laura watched the tactical map from the bridge of the USS Liberty. She could see the tiny dots of the Marine teams moving through the alien ship. "Report from the boarding teams," she asked. "Team 1 has breached the engineering section," the comms officer said. "Resistance is light. The aliens are disoriented. Team 2 is heading toward the command center. Tell them to secure the data banks," Laura ordered. "I want their star charts. I want to know where their home planet is. And tell them to watch out for traps. A cornered animal is dangerous." Inside the alien ship, the blast door finally gave way. With a screech of tearing metal, the door fell inward. Floating in the doorway were 3 human Marines. They were bulky, encased in powered armor that made them look like robots. Their faces were hidden behind dark visors. In their hands, they carried kinetic rifles, weapons designed to punch through armor. Grul raised his own weapon, a plasma rifle. "For the hegemony!" he screamed, pulling the trigger. A bolt of green energy shot out and hit the lead Marine in the chest. It splashed harmlessly against the thick black plate, doing nothing but leaving a scorch mark. The Marine did not even flinch. Without a word, the Marine raised his rifle and fired. The human weapon did not shoot energy. It fired solid metal slugs at high speed. The sound was a deafening crack in the confined hallway. The slug slammed into the soldier standing next to Grul, lifting him off his feet and throwing him against the wall. The alien slumped down, dead. Grul stared in horror. These humans were wearing armor that his plasma could not melt. They were tanks that could fly. "Surrender!" a mechanical voice boomed from the Marine suit. "Lay down your weapons or you will be eliminated." Grul looked at his men. They were terrified. They realized then that everything they believed about humans was wrong. The humans were not primitive. They were not weak. They were a sleeping giant that had woken up angry. Grul dropped his rifle. It clattered against the metal floor. "I surrender," he said, his voice hollow. The Marines moved fast. They zip-tied the aliens and pushed them against the wall. They moved with efficiency, securing the corridor room by room. They treated the aliens not as warriors, but as dangerous pests. While the boarding teams fought inside the ship, the rest of the human fleet was dealing with the threat of the remaining alien pieces. The alien ship had tried to launch the data buoy earlier, hoping to warn the Empire. But the humans were not going to let that warning get away if they could help it. Captain Eric was in his command chair on the carrier USS Archangel. He was looking at a sensor screen that tracked the small, fast-moving object speeding away from the solar system. "It is moving fast," Eric said. "It will be out of range in 10 minutes. If it gets to a relay station, the hegemony will know what happened here." "Can we catch it, sir?" his pilot asked. "Our ships are too heavy," Eric said. "But we have something faster." Eric turned to the drone control center. "Commander, launch the Spectre drones. I want that buoy intercepted and destroyed." In the hangar bay, a row of sleek, black drones powered up. These were special drones, designed for speed rather than combat. They had no guns, just a sharp, hardened nose cone and a powerful engine. They were essentially guided missiles. With a whoosh, the drones launched. They accelerated instantly, their engines flaring blue. They chased after the alien buoy, which was trying to dodge and weave through the debris of the asteroid belt. Inside the alien buoy, a small computer was frantically sending out a signal. Message sending. Destination, Xylos Prime. Content, warning. Sol system is a trap. Do not approach. The drone closed the distance. It was faster, smarter, and deadlier. It did not try to shoot the buoy, it simply slammed into it at full speed. There was a silent flash as the two objects collided. The alien buoy shattered into thousands of pieces. The computer chip that held the warning was turned into dust. The message died before it could leave the solar system. Target eliminated, the drone operator said flatly. Eric nodded. Good. The secret is safe. For now. Back on the Liberty, Laura received the news. The buoy is gone. The boarding teams have captured the main computer core. We have their star charts. Excellent work, Laura said. It is time to finish this. The alien ship is dead. The crew is captured. We don't need the wreckage anymore. She looked at the main view screen. The three huge chunks of the alien ship were drifting dangerously close to the shipping lanes used by the miners in the asteroid belt. They were also leaking radiation and toxic fuel. They were a hazard. Target the largest section, Laura told her weapons officer. Prepare a demolition shot. Let's break this down into small pieces so we can drag it to the salvage yards. Sir, there are still human marines on board, the officer warned. Get them out, Laura ordered. Then blow it. Inside the alien ship, the marines were herding the last of the alien prisoners toward the airlocks. Grull was shoved into a line. He looked out of a viewport as he walked. He saw the sleek, gray shapes of the human ships waiting in the void. He saw the drones patrolling like guard dogs. He realized the depth of his failure. He had thought humanity would be an easy meal. Instead, they had eaten his fleet alive. The Marines pushed Grull into a shuttle. The doors closed, and the shuttle detached from the wreck, flying back to the safety of the human fleet. Once the shuttles were clear, Laura gave the final command. Fire! The USS Liberty adjusted its aim. This time, it did not use nuclear weapons. It used precision beams. High-energy lasers lashed out from the human ship, cutting through the alien wreckage like a hot knife through butter. The lasers sliced the massive hull sections into smaller, manageable cubes. It was a display of control as much as power. The humans were dismantling the enemy ship with the care of a surgeon. The pieces of the alien ship tumbled slowly in the darkness, no longer a warship, just scrap metal waiting to be recycled. Commander Laura stood up and walked to the window. She watched the salvage ships moving in, their tractor beams locking onto the cubes of alien metal. It was a strange sight. The invaders were now being mined for resources. Captain Eric, Laura said over the comms. Secure the prisoners. Take them to the high-security facility on the moon. We need to learn their language and understand their technology. And the ones who resisted, Eric asked. Laura looked at her hands. They made their choice. We gave them a chance to surrender. We are not monsters, but we are not soft either. She turned back to the bridge crew. Set a course for Earth. We have won the battle, but the war has just started. The galaxy now knows that humanity is armed. We need to be ready for when the others come. The USS Liberty turned its massive bulk around. Its engines glowed blue, pushing it away from the graveyard of the alien ship. Behind them, the salvage crews continued their work, stripping the carcass of the Xylos ship clean. The void was silent once again, but the balance of power had shifted forever. The aliens had come with a single ship to scare a planet. They left with nothing, and humanity stood taller than ever before, guardians of a system that was no longer for the taking. The cleanup operation in the asteroid belt was swift and efficient. The massive chunks of the Xylos warship, once a terrifying weapon of domination, were now being tagged and hauled away by heavy human tugs. They were not being treated as trophies of war, but as resources. To the human industrial machine, the alien ship was just a supply of high-grade metal and unknown alloys waiting to be melted down and studied. On the bridge of the USS Liberty, the mood was calm, almost boring. The adrenaline of the battle had faded, replaced by the routine of post-combat procedures. Commander Laura stood by the window, watching a salvage ship lock onto a piece of the alien hull. She felt a deep sense of satisfaction, but it was a quiet feeling. She did not cheer. She simply checked things off her mental list. The threat was neutralized. The crew was safe. "Commander," the comms officer said, breaking the silence. "We have a transmission from Earth. It is Admiral John. He wants to speak with the senior officers of the fleet." Laura nodded. "Put it on the main screen." The flickering image of the Admiral appeared. He was sitting in his office on Earth, the walls behind him lined with maps and charts. He looked tired, but his eyes were sharp. Behind him, the world was turning, the sun was rising over the mountains, and life was continuing as normal. The people on Earth had gone to sleep in fear, but they were waking up in a new reality. "Ladies and gentlemen," the Admiral said, his voice grave but steady. "I have just finished speaking with the world leaders. The public knows that we faced an unknown object and that our defense systems worked perfectly. For now, we are keeping the full details of the alien technology a secret to prevent panic. But you all know the truth." He paused, looking directly at the camera. "We did not just survive an attack. We destroyed a superior force without taking a single loss to our capital ships. You have done the impossible. You have shown that humanity is not to be trifled with." Laura felt a swell of pride in her chest. "But," the Admiral continued, his voice hardening, "this changes everything. The void is no longer empty. We have confirmed that there are other civilizations out there, and they are not friendly. We are no longer just citizens of Earth. We are the guardians of this solar system. I am promoting the defense grid to a permanent active status. The trap we set stays open. We are the hunters now." The transmission ended. The bridge crew looked at each other. They knew that their lives would never go back to the way they were before. The boredom of patrolling the edge of the system was gone. Every shadow could now be an enemy. Meanwhile, on the far side of the moon, in a maximum security prison built deep underground, the surviving aliens were waking up. Sub-Commander Grull sat on a cold metal bench in a small, white room. His broken arm had been set and put in a cast by human doctors. They had treated him with a cold, clinical kindness that was more confusing than torture. The door to his cell slid open with a hiss. A human man in a suit walked in. He did not wear a uniform. He carried a tablet computer. "Hello, Grull," the man said in perfect Xylosian. "My name is Agent Smith. I am here to ask you some questions." Grull looked up, his eyes narrowing. "You speak our language, how?" Smith smiled thinly. "We cracked your code within an hour of capturing your ship's computer. Your technology is impressive, but our cryptography is better. Now, tell me, where is your home planet?" Grull spat on the floor. "You will never find it. The hegemony will come for me. They will burn this world for what you have done." Smith sat down on a chair opposite Grull. He didn't look angry. He looked like a teacher waiting for a student to understand a simple problem. "You sent a buoy. We destroyed it. No one is coming for you," Grill. You are alone. Your ship is scrap. Your crew is incels just like this one. Smith leaned forward. But we are not going to kill you. We want to learn. We want to know how your engines work. We want to know who else is out there. You can help us, or you can rot in this room. The choice is yours. Grill looked at the human. He saw no fear, no cruelty, just an unstoppable will. He realized that the humans did not just want to defeat the hegemony, they wanted to surpass it. He lowered his head. What do you want to know? Grill whispered. Back on the USS Aegis, near Neptune, Lieutenant Commander Mark was finishing his shift. The station had returned to its silent watch, but the feeling was different. The crew walked with a little more swagger. They knew that the tiny station they lived on was the bait for the most successful trap in history. David walked over to him, holding a cup of coffee. "Sir, I just heard that the salvage crews found an intact power core in the alien wreckage. They say it could revolutionize our energy production." Mark took the coffee and sipped it. "Good. We need every advantage we can get." "Do you think there are more of them?" David asked, looking out at the stars. Mark looked at the endless dark sky. "Yes, David. I am sure there are. The universe is big. But they aren't gods anymore. They are just targets. We fought a starship with railguns and tactics, and we won. Next time, we will be even stronger." He patted David on the shoulder. "Don't worry about the future. Just watch the sensors. If something else comes out of that void, we will be ready." The days turned into weeks. The wreckage of the alien ship was processed. Scientists found new metals that were lighter and stronger than anything on Earth. Engineers reverse-engineered the gravity drives, opening up the possibility of faster travel for human ships. The attack, which was meant to be the end of humanity, became the spark that ignited a golden age of technology. 1 month later, Admiral John stood on a podium in front of the United Nations building. Millions of people watched on screens around the world. He told them that Earth had faced a challenge and had overcome it. He did not reveal the full extent of the danger, but he promised that humanity would take its place in the stars. "We are not alone," John said to the cheering crowd. "And we are not afraid." Far away, on the edge of the solar system, the new fleet patrolled. The ships were bigger now, fitted with alien tech and human guns. The USS Liberty cruised through the darkness, its guns ready. Commander Laura stood on the bridge, watching the stars. She thought about the alien commander, Vex, who had underestimated them. He had seen a primitive planet and saw an easy victim. He didn't know that humanity spent thousands of years fighting each other, perfecting the art of war. He didn't know that when faced with extinction, humans did not break. They evolved. "Commander," the helmsman said. "We are reaching the edge of the patrol zone." Laura smiled. "Hold the line. Let nothing pass." The warship had emerged from the void, and humanity had met it with overwhelming force. The encounter was over, but the message was sent. The solar system was not open for conquest. It was a fortress. And humanity stood on the walls, watching the dark, ready for whatever came next. The silence of space was no longer a mystery, it was a challenge, and humanity had accepted it.